In this video, we are going to discuss something very important, especially for those of you who are thinking of moving to the Caribbean. We're going to be talking about the truth of island living. Moving down to the Caribbean is a dream of many, and chances are that if you have clicked on this video, you are having that same dream, or better yet, you are already in the process of making that dream a reality, and you're about to move down to the Caribbean. In that case, this video is definitely for you. Congratulations, by the way, and I hope it is everything that you have dreamed of. But just in the off chance that you didn't take everything into consideration, I'm making this video just for you so you know about the truth about island living. Hey, my name is Riselle, the traveling island girl on social media. Welcome back to my channel. And in this video, like I said in the introduction, I'm going to share with you everything I know about what it's like living on a Caribbean island. Now, like you, 20 years ago, I made that big move myself. So I do know what I'm talking about. Yes, I am a transplant. Although I was born and raised on the island of Curacao, you might think I'm a big, bad Caribbean woman and I know everything about it, so nothing could shock me. That could not be further from the truth. There were quite some shocks for me when I first moved to St. Martin, and I want to avoid all of that for you and to make the transition from mainland to the Caribbean as smooth as possible. But before we dive into that, I want to remind you to please hit that subscribe button, the like and the share button, because coming back to my channel every week and of course supporting me as a content creator is what makes it possible for me to keep coming back every week with more travel tips about the Caribbean and more about the Caribbean island lifestyle. So now that we've got that covered, let's dive right into it. And the first thing that I want to discuss with you is cost of living. Now, cost of living in the Caribbean is quite high. This is not the first time you hear me saying this, and it is the actual truth, unfortunately. Like if I compare it to St. Martin living, you can easily pay about $900 to $1,000 for a small studio apartment in an okay neighborhood, and that is not even including electricity and water and internet. Oh, forget about it. That's not included for sure. But of course, there are bargains, there are deals, and what I can suggest you do is first and foremost decide whether you're going to be renting or buying, and if you're buying, definitely take into consideration hiring a professional to help you find the dream place for you. And this comes also when it comes to renting a place. You might want to consider hiring a real estate agent for that too. They have the knowledge about the neighborhoods that will fit with your lifestyle, and of course a place and finding you a place that is in your price range. But housing is not the only thing that is expensive in the islands. Grocery shopping can be quite high, and that is simply, and this is something that I've discussed in many of my videos in the past, is that everything on a Caribbean island is imported. From the little berries to that big fancy car that you wish you were driving. Everything is imported. So take that into consideration. Of course, there are a couple of tips and tricks that you will learn very fast when you move down here, and that is that most probably you will not find everything in one supermarket, but you'll quickly learn to go for the best deal on produce to this supermarket and the best deal on rice to this little market or this little Chinese store on the corner. So you will learn all of that once you live here. So there are tips and tricks that you'll learn out of necessity to keep that price tag as low as possible. Another thing that you might not be taking into consideration is that because most of the produce is imported, by the time it gets here, the shelf life on it is quite small. They will not last that long. You will find, if you're lucky to find really beautiful mushrooms, it's probably gonna start spoiling in about a couple of days because it already spent quite some time traveling to you. And another thing also is if you're coming down here with a family and you have kids that need to go to school, then schooling is another expense. And if you are like most expats on Caribbean islands, you're probably gonna want to enroll your kid in one of those like very prestige American or Canadian schools, and that is gonna cost you an arm and a leg. And that is just one more thing to keep in mind when moving down here. Now, the second thing I want to discuss with you is transportation, because if you're moving down to the Caribbean, the hard reality is that you will need a car. And I'm not just saying that because, well, you know, it's fancy to have a car. No, it's a necessity. You will need a car to get pretty much everywhere, just because the public transportation is either not reliable or completely non-existent, depending on the island you move to. Of course, there are exceptions, but the majority of islands do not have a great public transportation. So you will need your own car. And when you're getting your own car, this again is an item that is imported, so this cost is quite high. And do yourself a favor, really think hard about what exactly you need for the lifestyle that you want to be living instead of what you would like to be driving. That's a big difference. I too, when I was moving down here, was thinking I want a big souped up Jeep, you know, like that I can cruise in the weekends and go off-roading. And that's all really nice and fancy. And I did get that Jeep, but the truth is that it was also a gas guzzler. So this thing was drinking gas like it was water. So you might want to think hard about which car suits you best. If you are only thinking of driving from A to B most days, then maybe a simple sedan or a simple small car will do. Also, do remember that most roads on most Caribbean islands are, how to put this mildly, they suck. So there are potholes, the roads are bad, or there might be dirt roads to get to where you live or where your friends live. So it's not always in mint condition. So getting a sports car, like my husband decided a couple of years ago to get himself an A4 Audi, is the worst decision that you can make, because at the end of year one, your car looks like it's been through war. And that is not the case on all Caribbean islands again. Of course, there are exceptions, but the majority of Caribbean islands have a bad road situation. So another food for thought. So by now you have understood that pretty much everything on Caribbean islands is imported. What you might not have really thought about is that you yourself are going to be probably doing quite some importing yourself. And with that, I mean you're going to be ordering online. Ordering online is a necessity for most people who have lived abroad, and even for locals as well. It's just that a lot of the things you have come to rely on are just not available here. So you are going to be doing quite a lot of online shopping. Now, for the online shopping, it's not impossible. It can definitely happen. We do that every day pretty much here on St. Martin and on a lot of other islands. But just keep in mind that, first of all, the smaller the island, the more routes are needed for the package to reach you. So it might not reach you speedy fast like you're used to on the mainland. And also, of course, there are costs that come with this, like shipping costs. There is no free shipping here down to the Caribbean. And of course, duties that come with it. Now, luckily enough, I live on a duty-free island, but the island that you are probably moving to probably will not be duty-free. In that case, you'll be paying duties on top of it too, so it can get quite expensive. So when you're placing an order, make sure that it makes sense. So don't go buying a little bottle of $5 just to be ending up paying $20 in shipping and duties. One thing that a lot of people don't think about when they're moving down to the Caribbean is friendship. Yes, you're going to make a lot of friends. It's easy to make friends with people who are like you, who also are expats, who also have moved from abroad and made a living here. But I do suggest, by the way, and this is something that I discussed in another video already, and that video, I'm going to link it down below so you can check on those, because a lot of the things that I discussed in that video, I will not be discussing in this one. So going forward, it is important that you make friends with locals, because you get to know more about the local community that you are now calling her home. But also keep in mind, please, that the friends that you make today might not live here in a couple of years or in a couple of months. Unfortunately, island living is not for everyone, and a lot of people realize that once they've moved here. It is also a reality that a lot of people just move down to the Caribbean temporarily, either for a project or for work. So chances are that you might be making a really good friend, investing a lot of time and love into this relationship, just for the friendship to end because the person is moving away, or you might decide that it's not for you and you end up moving away. So I have gone through this heartache myself quite a lot of times, and it's not fun. I can tell you that. So keep in mind, you will definitely be losing some friendships, and it's not because of choice. It is just because it's the way the island is. Islands are very transient. You're going to be meeting a lot of people that are just passing through, that are not hardcore like you or I, and that want to make this a a forever situation. So unfortunately, you're going to make some friends and they're going to move away. Speaking of friends, prepare yourself to become a part-time island tour guide, because a lot of your friends still living on the mainland are gonna come and visit. And of course, now that they know somebody that actually lives down in the Caribbean, a Caribbean trip makes more sense. So be prepared that you're gonna have to take a lot of people around. And although this is a lot of fun, it also becomes a little bit of a task sometimes, especially because life tends to take over, and you're in your everyday life, you're in your working environment, you're working and you're doing your things, and then friends come to visit and they expect you to be as free as they are to run around and do whatever. And unfortunately for you, this is now your life and you cannot be spending it every day on the beach. So be prepared for that as well. The next thing on the list of things to discuss before you move down to the Caribbean is the reality of island fever. And this is the thing I suffer of greatly myself. As a traveler, I need to get off this rock at least 3 to 4 times a year. And this is in my case, not even exaggeration. There are people who do this much more often. There's island fever is something that a lot of you will suffer from. You will need the occasional fix to go back to the US, Canada, Europe, wherever you're moving from, just to get that fix of the everyday life that you so took for granted when you were living there. You just want that fast pace of life again, and see your friends and family, or you just want to go for a shopping spree, because let's face it, shopping on the islands is not only expensive, it is also quite limited. So be prepared to do something about that island fever. You might fix it with just an easy trip to a neighboring island. You might get that at a very low cost, or you might just take a trip down to one of your favorite beaches and make a day of it, and then kind of feel like you've been out of it for a while. So that helps as well. And another thing is just to travel whenever you get a chance to. So be aware, island fever, real thing. Okay, so now it's time to discuss some of the other more inconveniences about living in the Caribbean. I'm sorry about that, but these are things that you need to know about. Now let's start off with lines. Yes, you're going to be standing in a lot of lines, so you better pack up that book or have some real entertaining stuff to do on your phone, which, by the way, is not accepted in places like banks and, of course, in government buildings. So keep that in mind as well. So you better be going back to that simple, book with pages, and that might keep you entertained when you're waiting in line. This is, of course, not the case on all Caribbean islands, but it might definitely be the case on the island that you pick to become your new home. So if you're going to the bank, you're probably going to be standing in line. You're going to the tax office, you're going to be standing in line. You're going to the government building to get some official documents, you're going to be standing in line forever. Waiting is just part of the game here in the Caribbean. And speaking of waiting, you'll be waiting even when you're trying to get things done at home. You need some minor things fixed electricity-wise, you're going to be waiting. Because even when the company tells you that they'll be at your home on one particular day around a particular time, chances are they will not show up at that time. They'll show up much later, or they won't show up at all. It's just part of the reality. I'm giving it real here, people. Another minor inconvenience is the fast internet is a thing that does not yet exist on most Caribbean islands. So be prepared to have spotty or very slow internet connections at your new home. And although, of course, you have exceptions everywhere. Like, for instance, I was pleasantly surprised when I was vacationing on Aruba because the internet there was quite fast compared to St. Martin. So that was really nice. But then you come back home and then you have a slow internet again. I mean, the internet is something that we all rely on during this day and age, and it's ridiculous that we still don't have steady internet connections. But unfortunately, that is one of the things that you're gonna have to come to terms with when you live on a Caribbean island. And even if the particular island that you choose offers a higher internet connection or a faster internet connection, chances are that you're going to be paying through the roof to get that special connection. Speaking of the internet, be prepared to get inconveniences, like for instance, when you click on a video that you want to watch on YouTube and a little screen pops up that says, this video is not available in your country. Yes, that is one of the ugly truths about living in the Caribbean. Even though most Caribbean islands are totally, completely functioning societies, we are still blocked for a lot of things that everybody else gets to enjoy. Prime Video, they'll take your money, but at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff that is available is not available where you are in the Caribbean. So keep that in mind. Hulu doesn't exist here at all, or at least not yet. So these are some of the other minor inconveniences that you're gonna have to deal with when here. And of course, there's a simple solution to that, and that is to get a VPN. So there are solutions to everything, but I must keep it real for you here. So that is why you clicked on this channel. You want to know more about the ugly truth of living in the Caribbean. I'm giving you exactly what you want. So having said that about the waiting and the slow internet, be prepared to slow down your pace of living. Things here just work a little slower. Things are not as fast-paced as you're used to. So be prepared to kind of slow it down. Go with the flow. Don't get angry because you're not getting things done. It's just the way of life here. And unfortunately, it is not going to get better anytime soon. So you getting angry and stressing yourself out, giving yourself a heart attack is not going to solve it. So just take it easy. Take a chill pill, grab a beer, a glass of wine, head to the beach and take a moment to de-stress and then come back and face it head on again. So another thing that we need to address, and it's very unfortunate that we need to address it at all, is the many, many stray dogs and cats roaming around on Caribbean islands. This is not an island isolated problem. It is a Caribbean problem. Unfortunately, and you might have already noticed this if you visited the island of your choice before, you're going to encounter many, many more once you live here. So unfortunately, Caribbean people do not see dogs and cats the way I and most people do as part of the family, but rather as very annoying and sometimes expensive alarm bells that they need to install for their house. So the dog has the purpose of being on a line with no water or food to just guard the house, or they are just abandoned because they're become a nuisance. And speaking of abandoned, I help out at a veterinary clinic, and I see this happening every week. Somebody decides to move away from the island and decides that the dog or cat is no longer part of their life because it doesn't suit their new life. And you will be surprised to know that a lot of expats are a part of the problem. So don't be part of the problem. If you decide to adopt, make sure that if you decide to go back to the mainland, that you bring the cat or dog with you. Another thing also is that if you cannot adopt, remember that there are other possibilities. You can foster, or you can help out at a shelter or with any of the homeless pets organizations that there must be on the island of your choice. And with that, we've come to the end of this video. Actually, no, we have not come to the end of this video just yet. I forgot to make a super important point, and that is for you to please do some research on the culture and the history of the island that you are moving to. Get to know the people, the culture, the traditions. Make sure that you understand that your way of life is not exactly the same as the way of life on this particular island. You might be avoiding a lot of hiccups this way and make the transition into island living much smoother by just understanding the new traditions of the new community that you have chosen to be a part of. Like for instance, people might say something to you and you might interpret it in a complete different way. So what I can actually advise you is make some local friends. This is where local friends can come in handy because they can explain to you what is so different between your way of life and ours, and that of course will help you along the way. Another thing that is super important is, and especially in a case like you moving to a English-speaking island is to learn the language. I cannot emphasize this enough. And although Caribbean people are generally super nice and they'll always try to adapt to you by speaking English to you, it can soon turn into some kind of frustration, and you might not even get invited to some events anymore because people are just want to be speaking in their own language and don't want to have to, you know, adjust the way they're talking just to include you in the conversation. So learn the language that is spoken on the island. This is super important. Speaking of adjustment, remember that you are the one that is moving into this new island community, and you're the one that's going to have to do all the adjusting, not the other way around. So I really do hope that this video was valuable to you and that you got to know quite a lot of things about the Caribbean lifestyle and Caribbean living. I do hope that if you have questions, that you won't hesitate and ask me. And before you go, also, do let me know, what did you think about this video? Did any of the things that I mentioned surprise you? And of course, I'm going over again to another voiceover because this video that I pre-recorded got corrupted and I'm finding myself showing you some kind of underwater image instead of my lovely face. So thank you again for watching, guys. I'll be back next week with more about the Caribbean. In the meantime, you might want to go back to all of the other videos that I've recorded. There are some really interesting videos about buying a house on the island of St. Martin, and also another one on the things that you need to know before moving here. So I'm going to link those below just so you have them. As for me, goodbye, adios, ciao, until the next time.